This is the Crystal Chronicles, your Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia podcast, with Erolai, Kreese, and Mark, bringing you all your DiFFOO news and talk. Welcome to Season 4, the LGBT era. Now let's start the show.
Hey friends, this is not what you want to see when you are quarantined in the basement of your house all afternoon after getting your COVID test and waiting in a car line for 2 hours. No, we are having some situations, but we'll talk about that. Welcome to the Crystal Chronicles, your Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia podcast. Thank you, Strafe and Illuminasa, for the Twitch Prime subs. You can always... Oh, that's a tier 1 sub from Illuminasa, sorry. You can always sub to our channel. I think there is some ongoing deals on Twitch right now. Thank you for your support. Thank you for joining us for another episode 127, recorded on this Thursday, November 12th, 2020. Thank you for all the well wishes. My daughter's surgery went excellent last week. She is home. Unfortunately, my son got a call. I got a call. Earlier this week on Monday, as I was visiting my daughter and wife in the hospital, that he was exposed to someone with COVID on Friday, which means him and his brother and myself were all exposed to him, who was exposed to someone with COVID. So we have some in biscuits. Thank you for the sub. We have been quarantined in the basement because my daughter is home, and so my wife and daughter are on the first story of our house. The boys and I are on the the first level of the basement of our house, where my palatial recording studio is, the In and Out Palatial TCC studio. So yeah, that's how my week's going. I hope your week's going a lot better, but there's a lot of other bad things. But I do seriously, everybody, be safe out there. Things, especially in our country here in the United States, are not going in a good direction. So be safe. Stay home. You know, as hard as it is, cancel some of those family gatherings that you're looking forward to, and Zoom and do those other things, because it's not worth it, friends. We buried another parishioner this week because of COVID, and we're at here 20, 30, almost 25, I think, people in our community who have died of COVID. Too much. So that will be my little speech for the day. Take care. I hope you're all safe, and now let's get out of that horror that we are living in and talk about the horror that is maintenance. Welcome to the show. Yes. Unfortunately, as I was coming home from my long trip, we went to log on to the game and finish the Kurasame event, which I hadn't finished, so I could talk about it on the show, only to find that there was a game that was not working and emergency maintenance. So good luck to Squex. Hopefully this is okay. We just had maintenance from the Squex bridge, which of course deals with all of their mobile games. But yeah, we are now still in the midst of that maintenance. And hopefully it will be, hopefully it will be done soon and the game will be running. And Joshua, you know, we always love the apology gems, apology-free burst tokens. Apology-free EX tokens. I'd love 10 free EX tokens. I'm just throwing it out there. Not saying it has to happen, but it certainly tied me over. I wouldn't be angry. But when you can get back into the game, there is some news. But before we get to that, I want to introduce you to my wonderful co-host who really with Macnol from DissidiaInfo.com carried the show last week, and I'm so glad they were able to do this. First, you know her and love her, Erolai. How are you doing, Ero?
Pretty good. Been a pretty normal week for me.
Normal is good. And I'm also joined by Kreese. Kreese, how are you doing?
I am really tired, but otherwise I'm doing okay this week. Just been very long.
I believe me, I understand. So we're all here, and we're ready to talk DiFFOO. There is a couple things that we have to talk about. We have some costumes. Now, Warrior of Light costume, I think you guys may have talked about it last week. We talked about it the week before. One of the better costumes in the game. The Warrior of Light costume, if you have the resources and like costumes, it's just a great costume. The warrior type costume or the fighter type costume from Final Fantasy, the original game, excellent. Kurasame's costume, now everybody knows, I've never played Type 0. I know the story. Apparently there's a whole manga for Type 0. Didn't know anything about that. There's some big fans of Kurasame. I actually kind of like Kurasame just from the videos and clips and cutscenes I've seen. But I really like, his base look is really cool in my opinion. But the costume that you can buy is his Type 0 cadet costume. Or his, cadet costume. So it's kind of when he was in school, making friends with Tonberries, which is apparently a thing that he did. So Arrow, you don't have Kurasame, so you didn't get the costume, but any thoughts about it?
It's a nice costume if you're a fan of the Kurasame's manga or just a Type 0 fan in general. I don't mind it. It's nice. But I'm more of a fan of the Warrior of Light costume. Just going to say it is one of the best costumes we've got in the game.
It is excellent. Dark Demon, thank you for the Twitch Prime sub as well. Thank you, everybody, for the support tonight. Chris, any thoughts on Kurasame's costume?
Not really.
Yeah, it's
no
blue.
comments on it.
It's blue.
I like his base design
Yeah.
plenty well enough, so I haven't even really thought about his costume at all.
Person whose
Honestly.
name I can't read because it's in dark blue. The game is still down. And if it isn't down, let us know in chat, and then I'll bring it up and we can play. That'd be fun. So last week, or 2 weeks ago, at some point, we introduced you to the first ever Lufenia TCC challenge. The first TCC challenge in the Lufenia era. We banned very short list of characters. This was the Shinryu event. We banned Bosch, Noct, Amitatillion, Warrior of Light, and all the synergy characters. Sync, Thancred, Yida, Agrias, and Laguna. No burst mode. And we also had an extreme. The extreme challenge, same ban list, no friend unit, and had to use either Spirit Moogle or Chocobo. The special was Begone Foul Orb. You must defeat Shinryu while the Lufenia Orb is not in play. And of course, the orb blinks in and out depending on the conditions that are met. So you had to make sure that you defeated Shinryu when the orb was not in play. Well, congratulations to the winners of the first ever TCC challenge for Lufenia. Arrow is one of those winners. Congratulations, Arrow. Arrow, you wanted to tell us what you used, but then lift up one of our TCC challenge folks.
Yes, I wanted to share Khaled today. I'm a little biased because I got to see Maria and Lufenia, the most recent one with Kurasame, and they used Hater and Emperor with it. Very cool team. I enjoyed watching the video so much that I just had to give a shout out, and I will be sharing your YouTube channel in the chat momentarily. And
we will get to that. TCC challenge later today. But shout out to Final ASIM and Sipes. I think I've seen both of you. Anybody else who's on this list who's here, shout out, and we'll shout you out on chat. So good job, everybody. Congratulations. We'll have a lot more TCC Challenge Lufenia. Again, that's part of a collaboration with DissidiaFFOO.com. Macnol, who was here last week from Dissidia Info, he does all the call to arms. So if you're interested in TCC Challenge, we share it on our Discord, we share it on Facebook and on Twitter, and then you can submit your video run, proof that you did it, to DissidiaInfo.com. He has a nice little form there. It goes into the spreadsheet. We can shout out your name like Sipes today. So congratulations, everybody, and we will talk about the next one very, very soon. But last week, Arrow, Crease, and Macnol introduced you to 8's lost chapter, The Power of Tranquility, along with 8's, he had an EX realization, but his LD weapon, which I got. And so I have been able to use 8. I I have to say we were talking, Black Cloud and Mino and a couple others. We were talking about counter characters, and not a big fan. I missed out on the first run of the counter characters. So Galuf and 8 and Cater, and there were some other early counter characters. Gao, who else am I missing? Arrow in that run. But the first run of counter characters, Edge, kind of, I guess. I didn't get any of their EXs. I still, to this day, I don't have Galuf, I don't have Cater, I don't have Edge, I don't have...
Edge is not a counter character.
No, Edge isn't a counter. I don't... Who I didn't have 8
Machina
until
can counter.
Machina...
Original king of counter.
Yeah, Waka.
Shadow can counter. Yang can counter.
Ronth
can counter.
So I didn't have any of those characters until Shadow's EX, the EX realization that came out with the Hope and Lightning banner. And so, I didn't really think, I'm not really interested in the counter mechanic. I loved Shadow. Now, Shadow, it's hard to have him be targeted, and his counter is a little different, but love Shadow. Shadow is such a fun character to play. So I am a little bit more interested in the counter characters. I was able to pick up 8's gear. I didn't have his EX or his LD or his 15 or 30. I think had his 30 or 15, not his 35. And he is a beast, man. He is doing work. And with this Lufenia and the next Lufenia, he's doing a lot of work. But that won't continue to be the case. But it is fun. I'm not a big fan of the soloing, but even with other characters, I've been enjoying 8. Did either of you get 8 and had some time to use him this week?
I did my free pull and got his LD, but I am not a fan of this kid, so I probably won't be building him anytime soon. His animations are bonkers long, and it drives me absolutely insane.
It's great for me because I don't pay attention very much. And so things are happening 2-3 minutes after I pressed a button and I'm distracted. And so that's great. Gladio is better. Yeah. Hey, we got a couple weeks still, Gladio. Let 8 have his moment. Completely different characters. I'm not really sure why we're comparing Gladio and 8.
I put some tickets in the banner, did not get 8's LD, so no, I do not have enough of 8 to make it worth investing in him.
Well, listen, you can watch my 8 should you pull. I didn't make one. You can watch my pull video, I guess. I am enjoying 8. I like the counter mechanic. Yes, the animations are very, very long. There's other characters that are... Gao's going to be a counter character. Gladio has some counters. His counter mechanic is not as reliable. 8 is super, super reliable when it comes to that. Gao is very reliable when it comes to that. Gladio's counter mechanic is kind of a lower part of his kit. So, yeah, we'll talk about that when it gets there. But we did have a Chaos event, a challenge quest, and a Lufenia to discuss with this. So let me go over how did you guys do this last week? Do you want to talk? Do we talk about the Chaos and challenge quest?
I think we're going to talk about the challenge quests, or we're going to talk about primarily just the Lufenia.
Okay.
Especially for this, all the fights are the same.
Yeah.
The Chaos, the challenge quest, and Lufenia are all the same basic fight. The only difference here is that the Lufenia has a Lufenia orb mechanic. And I think that'll make it easier for this week. Last week, the Chaos and the Lufenia were different fights, so we had to spend a little bit of time on each. And yeah, it'll be easier just this week. The Lufenia orb basically has 2 or 3 ways you can deal with it. Just to explain how it works. Mark, do you want to cover this, or do you want me to cover it?
You're more than willing to. I can also do it. But if you know how it works.
I'll cover 8's LC Lufenia,
Sure.
and I'll let
Perfect.
you cover the Kurasame Lufenia, because I haven't had a chance to do the Kurasame Lufenia, and I don't have any notes on it.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, so we'll start with the Lufenia orb mechanic, and then I'll go into what the boss does beyond that. So the Lufenia orb mechanic activates there's two copies of the boss, number 1, and it's a Cerberus variant. Lufenia orb activates 2 times for each copy of the boss. Once it drops below 80%, and then another time once it drops below 50%. When it activates, the boss drops triple, and the orb will stay until the countdown drops from 10 to 0, or when the boss activates triple again. Those are the two ways it'll go. If the countdown drops to 0, it activates Group Thundaga times Group Thundaga times Group Thundaga Plus, which is basically a really strong AoE Brave plus HP attack that also gives it a framed buff that increases its in Brave and speed for 5 turns. It's a pretty strong attack. It is survivable if you bring a good tank, or you bring a last stand party. However, the way you deal with the Lufenia orb, if you want to deal with it the way you're supposed to, is you're supposed to bring counter characters, because every time you counterattack them, you reset the orb back to 10, the countdown to 10. And that's the way you're supposed to deal with it. The countdown characters that Macno lists in his list of ones is 8, Galuf, Cater, Machina, Gao, Waka, Cloud of Darkness, Shadow, Yang, and Gabranth. Gabranth is the odd one here because the way it works is that his debuff activation when characters are attacked triggers the debuff activation when they're attacked counts as a counterattack in the mechanics of the game. So anytime someone's attacked and the debuffs are reapplied to the bosses, that counts as a counterattack. Countdown resets to 10. So just bring Gabranth that fixes that. If you do not want to bring a counterattack character, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to deal with the Lufenia orbs being triggered. There's 2 ways to deal with it. You have to bring a tank or someone who can soak them. Bosch is a really good option. That's how I got through the Lufenia orbs. I just brought Bosch, and he took them like a boss. Warrior of Light, who is synergy, his shields make this very survivable, but you do have to line them up very safely. He is not a guaranteed win button. Sacking him with an Int Brave boosting character helps a lot. Edge helps. His party evasion makes this very possible. A team full of last stand characters or other ways to cheat death, so a Freya type character helps here. And the last way is to just bring someone who can shut down the HP attacks, such as Kefka, RCL, or Eldnarsh. So those are the ways you get around the Lufenia orb. The way the boss's basic mechanics work is that they cycle between 2 stances. One is their basic stance where they just do normal attacks. They're not too threatening in this, but then they go into triple, where they raise their attack speed, and then they begin doing 3 actions for every action they actually do. So here they'll do like Thundaga, 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 or they'll do Thundaga, Arrow, Trio Head, and that's when they become dangerous, and they'll do that for multiple actions until they finally get out of it. It lasts for 3 actions. So when they're in the triple state, that's when they're most threatening, and that's when you have to watch out for them. But they're very predictable. Other than that, their stats are not particularly high. Their defenses don't go into, and their brave damage reduction doesn't go into crazy high rates. You just need to make sure you deal with the Lufenia orb, and I didn't find them too particularly threatening once I got past dealing with Lufenia orb mechanics. So again, I took Bosch, worked out for me, and I took a lot of breaks, and I was still fine. Arrow, how did you deal with this fight?
Let me say one thing on the mechanics. Macnol is saying in chat, and this is very, very true, when you counterattack against one of the 2 bosses, it resets both of the orbs. So you don't have to counterattack both the bosses. Every time you counterattack one boss, it resets both orbs to 10, which is nice.
Yeah. One other thing that's interesting about the orbs before I go into my strategy is that when the orb hits 0, if a character counterattacks, then the counter will go back to 10, and then you won't have to have the orb activate. I think it's just a way they prioritize the order of events. So I guess the Lufenia orb in this case is the last thing to activate. I'm really not sure if that's how it always will work in future fights where this may be a thing that could happen. But in this case, that's what happens. So I did the Lufenia the proper way, I guess, quote unquote, where I did bring counter characters. I used Machina, Leon, and Waka with a Keis friend, and I did actually try it first without Waka, and I was using somebody else in his slot, but I kept having problems where counterattacks just weren't triggering from Machina always in time, and it just was getting kind of weird. I just couldn't quite make it work for some reason. So I just swapped in for Waka, who actually did extremely decent damage through the whole fight since the boss's defenses are so low. And I just played Leon because I wanted to more than anything. But he did protect against a good chunk of the physical attacks that the bosses do. So it worked out. And I had a lot of fun with it. So that's pretty much it. I think the main thing is certain counter characters on their own are fine. Other ones might need a second counter character to work with them. So like Cater and Gala, for example, wouldn't need anyone else. Or 8, they don't need anyone else really to get through the Lufenia. But some of the brave damage only ones, they might, because I know like in Yang's case or Yang's case, it's only a chance he might counterattack. And Waka has to evade, for example, and Machina actually has to be targeted. And then like if the attacks miss, then Machina doesn't like counterattack. You know, it's just all these weird things like that happen, and it just made it really a pain in the butt to deal with. But at least I do like how they've handled the transition so far into Lufenia, making the orbs. Yes, we can tank them now, but starting next month, early next month, we won't be able to do that anymore. So it may be good in your favor if you are able to now to try to play against the orbs so you can get adjusted to that.
I'm looking to see, thank you, Arrow. I'm looking to see for any Yang clears, Macnol. I don't see any Yang clears. Oh, Yang, someday. Hey, but there is a note on Dissidia Info, and Macnol does beautiful boss guides to all of these fights. Check that out. Lots of good stuff on Dissidia Info, TonberryTroupe.com, Dissidia DB, OO Tracker, all of our friends that do that great website work. Make sure that those are part of your daily routine. But thanks to Parsnippins and Some Call Me Brian, 2 of our friends from our Discord, Gabrant's debuffs are considered a counter for these orbs. So if you have Gabrant, and you know he does that kind of counter debuff, that actually counts. So you can use that. So Macnol does have a that's the boss guide for that. That's good to know. Let me pull that up for Kurasame, because we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But yeah, so that is a great option. I don't know that we mentioned the other option, which is just to silence them. So Eldnarsh, Kefka, Arciela, you can HP silence, disable terror. Yeah, you can just do that as well. That's still a viable tactic for some of these fights. It is a very viable tactic for this fight. It becomes less of a viable tactic moving forward because the bosses in 8's Lufenia do not dispel you before they act. So that is going to be coming just a regular thing, and we're going to see that in the next fight. But
I did mention the HP silences or the terror as viable options for this.
I apologize. I was obviously looking at something else when you talked about that. So, all right. Well, that's the Lufenia. And of course, 8 can solo the Lufenia if you care about that kind of thing. I have 8. I did not want to solo it. Why solo it when you can bring 3 characters? So I brought Kistis and Renoa because they're 2 of my favorite characters. So I brought them, and they had a good time letting 8 do his work and giving him some good support there. So the CQ, you had a Warrior of Light, King, Kistis, and 8. So obviously, if you have 8 fully kitted, you can bring him by himself, and he can just solo it, or you can bring him and 2 of other people. 8 and Warrior of Light don't always work well together, but if you time your taunts or your locks well, it's fine. You start out with Warrior of Light's bitter end, get that up, and then move into 8's one later, and it works out fine. You just have to be a little bit careful and spam shield with Warrior of Light, and you don't have to use his buckler throw or anything, and it's fine. But yeah, I used 8 King and Kistis, and it was good. King King's not doing as much damage as he used to do. Let me put it that way. Even in synergy, he's his damage is tapered off a little bit. But I don't know that I character boarded him. So maybe if I would have character boarded him, he would have done much more. But yeah, you can carry pretty much anybody. And Warrior of Light, King and Kistis can do it pretty much. I think there were, if I look at challenge quests, I think there was even I was going to say there was like no purple runs. Warrior of Light LDBT with Just Realized King and Kistis. I see some
Pikachu
King.
had a couple 0 and get runs.
I was going to say I thought there were some
Warrior of Light -8 and Strago Warrior of Light.
Oh yeah, but that's not for the challenge quest. I was looking at the challenge quest quest. There are several King 35s, 835s to carry them along, but with Warrior of Light fully realized with his LD, or 8 carrying anybody with you have to use. That's the thing with the I said 8 can solo it. 8 cannot. He can solo it obviously, but you don't get the reward unless you have 3 party members. So you gotta bring 2 schlubs along with 8 anyway. There, hey Rez, check out Rezfoina on YouTube and Twitch, and watch her, and our friend Black Cloud, Black Nero on YouTube as well. But yeah, Rez, if you want to check out her very very long pull video for Kurasame, we'll link that, and it's a journey. You take a journey. But it leaves you in a good place, so I'll just leave it there. And yeah, good luck to all of you. It wasn't, it's not going to be the most difficult of the Lufenias. We're still kind of ramping up. It's obviously it's still difficult, especially if you don't have 8 or if you don't have the counters. But yeah, they're going to get harder. Yeah. So good luck. If you need help, DissidiaFFOO.com, call to arms. Or come on our Discord, and there's all kinds of wonderful people that are willing to help you in your plight for Lufenia. Well, we did get a new event since the last time we've checked, and that was the Kurasame event. Everybody's favorite character, Kurasame. I mean, obviously everyone loves Gladio first, and then Kurasame second, and then Rude probably third. I think those are everyone's 3 favorite characters, at least since Lufenia has been announced. That's everybody's 3 favorite characters. Maybe Lightning is in there. Edward was really high, real popular. So many. But Kurasame is really cool. I did do a Should You Pull video, so you can check out Kurasame Should You Pull. But the Ice Reaper event, and Kreese is going to go over this new character for us. This is a brand new character from Type 0. Let's hear about what Kurasame does.
So, Kurasame is, excuse me, ostensibly a melee attacker who leans heavily on the ice element. All of his abilities are ice elemental. He self-enchants himself with the ice element. He imperils the ice element. And just note that while he does all this, he does not grant his allies the ice element. So if you want to take advantage of this on the party level, you need to bring someone else who can take advantage of this. Bring Shiva, that sort of thing. So keep that in mind. So that's his first utility. He brings party auras. They're not amazing, but they're strong, but they're nice boosts. The third thing he does is he brings a unique debuff that does a couple things that really cinches his kit and makes him unique. His unique debuff's called Hyoro, which I'm probably not pronouncing correctly, but that's probably the best I'm going to get. Hyoro does a couple things. Number 1, it reduces the enemy's speed. It applies the ice resist down. And the other thing it does is that it increases HP damage taken per stack. It can stack up to 5 times. And the way the stacks go up is that they increase every time the target that has it takes a turn. It increases every time Kurasame uses one of his abilities. And I'll go through how many stacks it goes up based on which ability when I talk about his abilities. However, once it reaches max stacks, it decreases back down to 1 stack after the enemy acts at 5 stacks. So it cycles through being at maximum power and at its lowest power for HP damage increased potency. At its lowest potency, it's a 10% increase, and at its highest potency, it's 30% potency. So really the nuance for using Kurasame is trying to exploit the highest damage, HP damage amplification, to the best of your ability, basically. The other thing that Kurasame does is that he has follow-up attacks after he uses his EX for the first time, and I'll get to that once we get to his EX ability. His skill 1 is Ice Blade Renzan. This is a single target ability. Nothing special, just has single target damage. It applies 1 stack of Hyoro. His second ability, Multi Blizzaga MIS2, is an AoE Brave plus HP attack. It applies 2 stacks of Hyoro to all targets. Again, nothing too special, does split HP damage. His EX ability is Ice Reaper. It has a pretty decent recharge rate. It takes about 2 ability uses to recharge. It does AoE Brave plus HP damage. It does it twice. The big thing it does, along with applying 2 stacks of Hyoro to all targets, is that it gives him a unique buff called Ice Pillar, which causes him to do a follow-up attack after every attack he does, which is a single target Brave plus HP attack that also gives him Brave regen based on the HP damage dealt, which does a couple things. It gives him more damage dealt to single targets. It also gives him some Brave protection to keep him from being easily broken. Again, a nice little kicker benefit. His Brave plus is a simple single target Brave attack, multiple hits. His HP plus is a 2 Brave plus HP attack that raises hero stacks by 1 level. And his LD ability is an AoE Brave plus HP attack that does full damage, and raises hero to max stacks immediately. Along with this, he has 3 unique buffs, which I'll talk about in a minute, and he also has an additional ability called Brave Up Blizzard Slash. Brave Up Blizzard Slash is a pretty nice additional ability, especially after he gets Ice Pillar going, because while it's a Brave plus HP attack, that gives him Brave gain based on the up to 50% of the HP damage dealt, and if you trigger this while Ice Pillar is going, he gets Brave gain after Brave Up Blizzard Slash, then he triggers Ice Pillar, so he can get a lot of damage out of this for a free use 3 times per combat, so don't forget about that. It's a pretty nice free ability he can do. His auras do come partially from his buffs. One of his buffs comes from his LD ability, Warm Gaze. The other buff comes from Ice Blade Renzan, his skill 1. These are applying some of his party auras, his attack aura, and his party overflow aura. So make sure those do not fall off. And I think that's about it. His kit's relatively simple, all things considered. The nuance for his kit, as I said, is just maintaining the hero stacks on the enemies, making sure that you try to keep them as high as possible and exploit the high-level stacks on targets. And that's about it. He's decently strong. You want to take advantage of the HP damage amplification as much as possible. Hyo roll is how I'm supposed to pronounce it, Mino says. Hyo roll. Okay.
I have no idea, honestly.
Mino says high or roll.
No, he was just trolling.
Oh, he's trolling? Hyo roll. Okay. I think those are the key points I've hit. Did I miss anything, Mark?
No, I think you hit all the points. Arrow, did you pull Kurasame?
No. I ticketed because I wanted to get one more character for the challenge quest, and in my ticket pulls, they were insane. I got both Edgar and Cypher EX. I did get Kurasame too, but I just don't really. I gotta save gems, guys. There's a bunch of characters I know coming up. I know I'm going to want a gem roll for them. I have to cut corners somewhere, and unfortunately, Kurasame was a pretty easy one to hit that chopping block for. I don't know. I guess it's kind of cool with the debuff mechanic, but having the extra HP damage attached to that stacking debuff that also goes back down can be very tricky depending on your team. So I know people have been comparing him to like Charlotta, but the main difference is with Charlotta is she's always a constant 20% while that's EX buff is up. But in Kurasame's case, it's going all over the place the whole fight. So it's just something to keep in mind. And also on top of that, Charlotta heals, Kurasame doesn't. So, I mean, there's some other, obviously, it's not good to compare characters, but I've seen the comparisons going around. These two do not play the same. I've seen the co-ops, seen them in co-op. I have Charlotta. I recently purpled her, and they don't play the same. They're very different in how they feel and in their pacing, and including, obviously, damage outputs are going to be very different between the two of them.
Yeah, Final Asim is asking, is the EX normal charging or is it bugged like it was back in JP? In the Japanese version of the game, when Kurasame launched, the EX did not charge or charged slowly. The EX, at least in the time that I've been playing Kurasame, seems to charge appropriately one skill and one HP plus. I'll have to look now. The Tonberry Troupe usually has that on their website, but it did seem to charge regularly. I might be thinking about 8's LD now. Yeah, let me see if I can pull that up. Sorry about the silence there, folks. But yeah, I'm not seeing. Oh, Ice Reaper charges in 2 skill uses. Okay, so 2 skill uses, that seems appropriate, right? For what it's been, at least in me. It's definitely not. It's not a fast charging EX, but it is charging appropriately, I think. So I do not think it is bugged. Let me put it that way. Kurasame is. First of all, it looks awesome, and I love the fact that he just beats the crap out of the cadets in his game and in the story. Let's just put that right out front. I do like the fact that he's friends with a Tonberry that I've learned. Very, very cool. But beyond that, there's been a lot of hype behind Kurasame. He's a great character. In my opinion, I think the term that I would use for Kurasame is he's an enabler. He enables other characters to perform better. He might be even better. I mean, he would be like a one-size-fits-all. If he healed, if his auras were better, and if he party enchanted, yeah, he would be like the perfect character. And you would say, yeah, you definitely have to pull him. But there aren't really a lot of perfect characters. We might argue Gladios pretty close. There are a few characters that they're pretty perfect in what they do. But yeah, his auras are not stand alone. You need some other support and some other auras. He doesn't heal, so either you have to bring people who can just do a lot of damage, or you're going to need some healing. And he doesn't do enough damage to be a solo damage dealer and just have 2 other supports, 2 other kind of people supporting him. So, but what he does is enables other people to do damage, and he works real well with people like 8, because every time 8 is counterattacking, he's getting that damage up. He works real well with people like Noctis or like Lightning, who are coming up, who take a ton of turns, who have bursts, who are just really, really fast and can act in bursts before the boss gets to go. Because every time the boss acts, the debuff resets to 1. But it does build up to 5 really fairly quickly. So it's really not a big deal, at least in the ways that I've been playing with it. It doesn't really seem like it's at 1 a lot of the time, especially if you're playing intelligently. It's going to be at 5 a lot of the time. And if you can wait and summon appropriately, burst appropriately, you're going to do tons of damage when it's at 30%. So Yin is saying something. Yeah, the thing about the HP damage debuffs and buffs is they stack differently. Debuffs for HP damage taken can increase damage beyond the caps. Yes, and have and buffs can't. So if an attack deals max with 50% splash, 30% debuff will increase the splash damage. Meanwhile, the 30% buff don't. Yes, Smacknell is saying the 30% buff already increased the splash damage. Difference is the debuff gets applied twice. Yeah, there you go. But yes, and it's dealing some good damage. And so yeah, you kind of have to, if you want, in my opinion, one of the reasons to bring a character like Kurasame is if you do really like to, if you're a big fan of the 0-turn runs, he's a great character for enabling Noctis or Lightning. But, he's also really useful for playing with characters that might be a little out of date in terms of their damage, because he can up their damage enough if you're a person who just really likes to play with the characters you like. He's a character that can enable them to do more damage. But yeah, he's going to be good for a while, and he does ice damage, which is always nice to have some extra ice damage and elemental characters. So, I think if you can budget him in, he's definitely worth a pull. I was willing to pity him, almost did. 55,000 gems in. You can watch that on YouTube as well. But I'll enjoy using him, and he'll have a place in my team. Kreese, any final thoughts before we get into the fight?
I ended up pulling for Kurasame. I felt I needed some more elemental characters, and he seemed like a good one to fill that niche, especially for the mixed support/damage type of character. And I've been enjoying him so far. As I said, I don't think I've mentioned on recording yet, but I've not had a chance to try him in hard fights yet. I've just been messing with him in easier fights so far. He's been good. I've been enjoying him. He definitely feels pretty solid to play. He doesn't feel complex yet, but I haven't had to try to juggle really trying to make his debuff work yet. So I'm interested to see how that will work out. That'll be exciting.
Oh, one last thing from my end. I saw Hero Soge King mentioning, I forgot to mention it, Charlotta and Kurasame's HP damage debuff thing does stack. So yes, you can get up to 50% extra HP damage if you want to do it.
Yeah, 8 likes that. Noctis would like that. So yeah, any of those characters that are just relentlessly attacking for almost no damage. Yeah. I don't know if it stacks. Does it? Yeah, it would stack with the traps, like Emperor's Traps. So things like that. Illuminasa has highlighted a thing, so let me read that. I've been waiting to say this forever. Sorry if it's not the right time. Vaughn is single target, but his red spiral does contain ice element, so it does help with damage. And you can strat him in Lufenia if you absolutely don't have an ice enchanted character. Yeah. So yes, Van is one of the ice characters that you can use in this coming Lufenia, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. And 5 DPC on his quest to get all of the burst weapons did have to pity Kurasame LD with 120 gems. Sorry about your luck, 5D. I missed out. Wall burst is the first burst I do not have, so you can feel bad for me. I even went back with a few tickets on Kurasame banner until I got Edward's EX, because now I have every EX and every LD.
You mean Edgar?
Yeah, Edgar. What did I say? Edward? Edgar, the guy with the brother of Sabin. That guy. I now have every EX and every LD on the wall cycle, so no Warrior of Light burst for me. So you can just send me some sad emotes and some letters of condolence. I appreciate that. So, but if you want to see what everybody else did, you can go on to our Discord on podcast polls, and every time there's a new banner, jump on our Discord or any Discord and go to the podcast polls. And it looks at all of the servers from Quetzalmo's Materiabot. You can go check him out on Materiabot and Patreon. Across 11 servers, 2 people were willing to pity Warrior of Light's BT on this banner. 51 pitying the LD, which would be Kurasame's LD. 39 using gems, 143 using tickets, and 58 brave people skipping. So yeah, I do have over 50 BT tokens. I'm not planning to use them on Warrior of Light. Yes, 5DPZ, you are the burst champion. So Congratulations. I will be content to not have Warrior of Light's burst weapon. So congratulations, all of you who got it. Hopefully it did not cost you the bank, and you have plenty of gems to pull on those characters that you enjoy moving forward. Well, the Lufenia fight, a little different, is 2 devil hornets. They're kind of bee-looking things, and they're kind of annoying. The mechanic behind the Lufenia orb is you have to freeze it. And I think it has a 15 turn count. And if you let it go, it ticks down when you take an action. It ticks down when the boss is taking action. And if it ticks down to 0, let me see it. Yeah, it starts at 15, -1 when the player acts, -2 when the boss acts. Pulling all this from DissidiaInfo.com, and Macnol works with Rem at Dissidia Database to get these wonderful boss guides out to us. So thank you for both of them on the good work that they do. But if you use an ice attack, it freezes the orb. So it doesn't tick down at all. It pauses until the next turn, and then it will unfreeze. So every time you use an ice attack, it freezes. So you want to use people with ice attacks. If you take the orb, it does Beating Wave, which removes all players' buffs, removes its debuffs, and then recovers from break, does an AoE or all Brave plus HP attack, grants itself 4 turns of 50% attack up and 4 turns of HP regen. You do not want to take the orb, I would say. Someone's asking who I'm using my burst tokens for. That's a good question. I don't quite know yet. So yes, Kurasame, Cater, Realm, Palom are all very good options. If you have tanks or if you can evade it, HP damage mitigation, that would be very good. Obviously, things like gravity-based attacks, instant breaks to deal with that. Turn delay, all those things are very, very helpful. It does absorb, it's weak to ice, does absorb dark. Beyond that, one of the big things to watch out for is when it gets into its weight mode, and it grants the following ability when it is weighted or weighed down. It's immune to break, delays, knockbacks, reduces all incoming Brave and HP damage by 30%, and increases its HP damage. So when it's in weight mode, it will be in that mode until it uses Rush, which is its Brave gain HP attack, but that stops if you hit it with an ice attack. So they really want you to bring somebody who does ice. And as Illuminasa said, Vaughn is one of those options. Papillamo, I mean, if you gotta find somebody, Snow does ice. I mean, there are several options with ice. Onion Knight, 7. Celeste has an ice attack. Lon and Rain, Rem, again, not with her World of Illusion weapon. Not the greatest options, but they are all options. So again, if you have 8 can, I believe, solo this. I don't know why you want to go out of your way to do that. But yeah, you can, if you can just ignore the orbs, then it doesn't matter. And 8 can solo it. Some fairly low runs. But you can check out the call to arms. I've seen if there's any particular ones that really worked interestingly enough. Kurasame is going to help with damage. Kurasame Noctis Vivi, Kurasame Noctis Kais, 0 turn. There's like 3 or 4 0-turn runs if you just want to go crazy. So there are options, but I think this is a little bit more challenging. Arrow, I know you had the opportunity to take on this fight. Why don't you take it away, talk about it?
Yeah, the main thing is there's 2 spots where the orb will show up. The first time is once the enemy is under 80% until they go under 50%. Essentially, you might as well read it as 80 to 50%, but And then the second time, it will appear when the enemy goes under 30% health. And at that point, the orb does not go away for the rest of the battle. So you can technically ignore this orb if you can somehow bring like tons of damage, I guess, to get through those 30% spots. And then, take Shiva summon so you can have a little bit of breathing room in there. Maybe some friend unit that can do some ice damage. You might be able to sneak through it without having a main party ice damage dealer. But again, you're going to need some big guns to do that. And personally, that's not me. So the other thing is when it does the weight mechanic, it does gain a bunch of brave. So you still need to make sure you deal with that. And on the other hand, you want to probably deal most of your damage to the other bee that doesn't have the weight thing on, because I don't think they ever both have weight on. It's only ever one at a time. I used Palom, Charlotta, and Desh. And the reason why I had to use Desh was because that all attack that they do at the start of the fight is disgusting and hurts like mad. So yeah, you might need something to kind of deal with that, especially because they're going to both do it right at the start of the fight on their first turn. And the other thing that I noticed is they will do it probably near when they're dead. That's usually the only other, maybe you might see it in the middle of the fight and then one other time near the end. So you need to be prepared to deal with it about 3 times, maybe 4. And yeah, so I just used Dash because I just wound up using skill 1 to protect against the magic damage they do. The AoE attack is magic, so keep that in mind as well. And other than that, it's tricky because when the first orb is fine, it's easy to kind of do that 30%. But then when you know that orb's not going away the second time, it becomes a bit of a damage race. Like, can you beat these guys in time before the orb will count down and clock out? Because most of our ice damage dealers are single target, oddly enough, unless you're using, I think HaateXIII has, she has AoE, Realm has AoE, and Kurasame has AoE, but all like pretty much every other ice damage dealer we've got outside those 3 are single target only. So Vaughn, Palom, Camlanaut, Celeste, all of them, they just only hit
Onion Knight would be
Papalimo.
Papalimo,
Onion,
yeah, but
Onion Knight's area of effect though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, an Onion can be he can be multi, but only when he uses the Meteor EX. So a lot of them have it maybe on their EX, but so it's not on demand. So this gets really tricky if you can't really delay the enemy turns in any way, because they are fast. I don't know, man. It just feels like they get turns all the time. And then like your ice damage dealer just sits there for 5+ turns. It feels like not going. And it's like, oh my gosh. So it was just, it just really, I don't know. This fight kind of put me on edge, especially in that last 30%. But I'm terrible at damage dealing races. I got to be honest. So I was really shocked I made it work. And I only had to try this Lufenia a couple of times to get it right. But I know this is good practice also if you manage to deal with the orb as appropriate, because next month, those Lufenias are all practically damage dealing races. Yep. So I better get used to it. Good to have this warm up now.
Someone mentioned that, so they have the buff cleanse, so that takes out characters like Bosch because he can't absorb a hit because he loses all his buffs, right? But they don't have guaranteed hit, which there will be bosses that have guaranteed hit. So that's why 8 is fine, because he'll miss it and can counter. Edge is also an option because he can give the entire party evasion and basically give them evasion to miss the orb, but you're going to really need some damage on that. And you can use Kefka and Arciela. It won't help you against the orb, but it will buy you some time and lock the enemies down a little bit, which is helpful. So there are some different ways. If you're going in the CQ, you don't have to worry about freezing the bosses. You don't have to worry about the orbs. Cypher, Edgar, Warrior of Light, 8, and Kurasame. You have 5 characters to choose from. Probably if you haven't invested in Cypher and Edgar, especially Edgar, Edgar's not great. You probably don't want to invest in them very heavily, so you want to carry them, and you can. Or you can bring Warrior of Light, 8, and Kurasame and just destroy it horribly. So, but yeah.
I don't want to talk about that CQ much because I carried an Edgar, and oh man, that was awful.
You used Warrior of Light, Cypher, and Edgar?
Yes, and I purpled Cypher because I have a lot of ingots to kind of play around with. And he's pretty fun, but
Man, Edgar. I'm so sad because he's a favorite from FF6, and he is always such a disappointment in this game for me.
Yeah, Cypher, Ryu Cloud 1 says Cypher can be clutch. Yeah, Cypher is not terrible. I mean, he's doing decent things still at this point in the game when he's fully realized. But yeah, if you don't have him fully realized, you may not want to invest in him unless you got about 1,000 ingots. But yeah, Edgar, he's got to get a tuning pass here pretty soon. But he's good against machines. Unfortunately, these are not machines. Well, you can go. We don't have a TCC challenge announced yet, but look out for that. We will do a TCC challenge. Limiting probably Kurasame, but maybe not some of those other characters. 8 will probably be banned. So you'll be coming up with some creative solutions for that. If you need help, again, you can look at Macnol's boss guide at DissidiaInfo.com or join our Discord, and you can look for some help there as well. Good luck to all of you for that Lufenia. Well, that's all of our events for today. We are going to have a bunch of events here this next week to talk about. But, Crease, is there some questions that we can answer? It's been a hot minute since we've had some time to do host discussion. So you can go on to our Discord, and we have a section under the podcast questions, where you can ask us our questions. While Crease is looking up a wonderful question to start our conversation, somebody did ask who I am planning to use my burst orbs on. I have not decided. I would like Kuja's burst. I would like Cloud's burst just aesthetically, and they're two of my favorite characters. I like how their bursts look. Not Kefka, Kuja. Kuja gets trance mode, which is awesome. Cloud's just is really cool looking. Might have a little bit more functionality later on. But I may save it for Lightning as well, just because she's overpowered and is going to run through some things for a while, and I'm not planning to pull on much of her cycle. So I will probably use, assuming I don't get any of those bursts, I will probably use it on one of those bursts. So yeah, there you go. Crease, is there a question that's not just for me?
Yeah, we have some questions. First question we're going to answer tonight is from Pikachu. It's from a few weeks ago. Who was the cheesiest or most OP for the most of chaos? They give some options, but I'll just leave it open for the host to give their option. I think it's not too hard to say that Aranea probably had the longest run for the most of chaos as being probably the strongest or most powerful character for the longest run of the chaos era. She came early, she was a global first, and she just dominated fights for a very, very long time. Arrow, do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, she was definitely up there. Do we want to bring out some of the others that we think mattered? Ooh, Yuri. Oh, man. After that stupid Holy Absorb month he had to deal with, that boy was still pumping out the good damage. Like, man. And then he could just keep going and going. And it was like, it didn't matter. Like, he could heal your party. He gave them support through, like, Brave Generation that was based on, like, their Brave. And he could gravity shave. It was just like, man, this guy just eats through everything. It was great. Oh, and he also had instant break on his EX, which was pretty cool and very useful against Alexander summon. So very nice character, very useful in a lot more fights than he had any business being in. Awesome character, definitely noteworthy.
Ryan is the Bomb 203 was asking who was the first Chaos again. Check out Ryan is the Bomb. He does our music for us on YouTube. He also does Chaos and Lufenia runs. And Yoshi Pasta, who's also on YouTube, said the first Chaos was the Heretics with Cloud and Vincent. Fang's Lost Chapter was the first Lost Chapter Chaos, correct? So it was in that era. Yep, Zach, Final Asim is saying Zach was very, very powerful. Arciela was very, very powerful.
She just came late.
Yep.
Galuf was a very, very strong tank when he arrived, because if the bosses just did melee HP attacks, melee single target HP attacks, he trivialized the fight.
Yeah, Snow was a great Ultimecia. Oh yeah, Ultimecia had a good run. Moomeister saying, yeah, Ultimecia did have an excellent run. Ragin and Zaz came late, but both were very good. Yeah, there's a lot of good characters, but yeah, I think you're going to be hard pressed to find someone who dominated as long as Aranea did. So, next question. Good question, Pikachu. Thank you.
Parsnippins asks, in honor of Vivi's LD being released, which character in Opera Omnia has had the worst overall career now? Arrow, do you have any opinions?
Young right now, but he gets justice later, so it's okay.
Who did you just say?
Young.
Oh, Yang. Yeah, well, I think Edgar might be.
Don't remind me. Yeah, he's pretty.
I feel like Yang was useful when he got his EX realization for a while. Yeah, so I don't. Yeah, Seymour even. I think Seymour was decent in his overall from the time they got their very first weapon to now, like the longest. Like Tidus had his moment. His 35 got early in global. Tidus had his moment when he got his EX. It was fine. His EX realization was not exciting, but Yuna is the worst. I love Yuna. I use her every day. Yeah, Rydia. Yeah, but Rydia was fine. I mean, somebody. Yeah, Fang. I think Fang has been tough. Preesh, when she got her 35, man, Preesh was great. You got to go way back, friends. You got to go. These
Zell
characters
has had very few points where he's been good, and they've been very short-lived.
But yeah, after seeing Edgar this week, I think Edgar's on the short list of worst characters.
Somebody mentioned Thancred, but Thancred time traveled once, and when he got that early
that was
EX,
awesome.
Y'all, he was good for like a solid 2 months with that EX. I played it, and he was pretty good during a time. So at least he had a time he shined.
Thank you, Final Asum.
He said for many of these others we are mentioning.
Final Asum's reminding me Ash. I am still upset about Ash. She just got her LD is getting her LD in Japan right now. I bought into the hype for Ash 35, never used it. It was garbage. Yeah, then her EX came and it was underwhelming. Her EX realization is underwhelming. But now, yeah, her LD is pretty good. So there's hope for Edgar. But yeah, I definitely think Edgar and Ash. But yeah, there was a lot of hype when Ash got her 35. I don't think there was ever any hype for Edgar. But when Ash got her 35, there was a lot of hype, and it was bad. Sabin, yeah, Mino's saying Sabin. So yeah, there's a lot of craptastic characters. One of them may get a global first LD for the 3rd anniversary of the global game. So just wait, it won't be Ash because she has her LD. Wait and see. Good question. That was from Parsnippins.
McDole asks, what have the hosts done with mannequin weapons? Are they collecting dust, or have you sacrificed precious power stones to get them out of the way? So I have done a mix of power stoning them for characters that I've been using actively and letting them just sit in my inventory when they are characters I'm not using actively. So it's when I'm in a point where I am planning to use the character, or I am using the character as in their LD just came around, they just got a new rework, that sort of thing, and I have the power stones to spare. I will get the mannequin weapons fully powered up, and then sell them. That's what I've been doing. So I think 2/3 of the mannequin weapons are now fully. I got the passives and have sold them. I'm still sitting on I think 4 or 5 of them myself.
Arrow, what's your mannequin weapon strategy?
I'm like Kreese. I have done about half of my mannequin weapons, and it is 4 characters I do use. I do need to do Warrior of Light soon because I did get his LD, and I did purple him, so I probably will just do his mannequin weapon soon. I have a lot of power stones. I ticket pull all the time. I never have tickets, just so you guys know. So I'm always sitting on a lot of power stones. I don't even really think about it when I use them because they just wind up stacking back up, it feels like, in a month later. But
Yeah, I use them for characters that I like, and I think some of them are very useful, especially since many of these pro tags also have World of Illusion weapons, such as Bart, Squall, and Vaughn, being really really good characters with those World of Illusion weapons, and just giving them even more brave damage when they use their basic skills is really really nice. So I like them. You should use them. You should upgrade them eventually, but they are by no means necessary. If you really like a character, though, they are super bonus nice stuff to have.
I am at 0 Power Stones, and we were talking about this in one of our chats this week. I completely forgot that we have mannequin weapons. I have upgraded 2 of them, Squall and Cloud, and the rest of them I have not touched, even though I have LDs and BTs for Vaughn, Shantoto. Even though Paladin Cecil is one of my favorite characters, I have Walls, LD. I have not touched. I have almost all of those characters purple. I have not touched any of those. And again, I have no Power Stones. Now, I haven't sold any of my LDs, and I have tons of extra EXs I haven't sold. So it's not like I don't have any Power Stones, but yeah, I forgot completely they were there. One other thing, and I don't think there's a question about it, but it was a reminder. I completely forget about weapon tokens. I have, somebody was saying they got I think J.A, one of our mods, great guy, has over 500 weapon tokens. I have over 250 weapon tokens. Yeah, you can use weapon tokens on those World of Illusion weapons if you don't have them. I have most of them, but you can get 4 copies of them. You can use them on 15 and 35s. You probably don't need several hundred or more weapon tokens. So use those as power stones and limit break some of those especially those 15 CP weapons. So why haven't I sold my LDs, Riku? I just like looking at them in my inventory. I've got like 20 LDs just sitting in my inventory. I just like looking at it. It's like
you're sitting on a lot of power stones that you could get back if you're at 0.
I don't want to sell them.
Point taken. I don't know. I mean, I guess you like clutter in your inventory.
I haven't sold any of my 6 fully realized EXs for my burst weapon characters either. And like I said, I have a lot of EXs I haven't sold, so including
That's
realized
ingots.
extra real. Oh yeah, I've got a lot of ingots sitting. I just like looking at it in my inventory. So,
and don't complain about not having any power stones.
I wasn't complaining. I just said I have 0. That was just a statement. Just a statement. It wasn't a complaint. But yeah, those weapon tokens. Use those weapon tokens. Yeah, you don't need several hundred. Save yourself something. But yeah, and I again, the World of Illusion weapons. If you're a newer player, you may not realize that some characters have an additional weapon that came out in the original World of Illusion banners. So, for example, Bart's has a World of Illusion weapon. If you go into your weapon token shop, you'll see another 15 CP weapon for Bart's. It's really good. It's a party aura, right? Bart's is party aura. Laguna has a party aura. There's several characters. Now, some of them are garbage, like Yuna. Don't even look at Yuna's World of Illusion weapon. If you have questions about those, you can jump into our Discord. We'll answer them. But there are some really good World of Illusion weapons that are worth spending 40. I mean, just get 4 of them. 40, unless you have like 600, 700, 1,000 power stones. But 10 weapon tokens to get 1 or 40 weapon tokens to get 4 and fully limit break it. Yeah, there are several. Rem's World of Illusion weapons meta for Lufenia gives her ice. So yeah, Cloud's World of Illusion weapon is amazing. That's the one that gives him Dispel, right? There are some really good ones. So definitely don't forget that. Yeah, maybe Yuna's will be relevant again. So Katsufume is saying so. Let's hope. I'm really looking forward to global first Yuna LD.
There is actually one reason to get get the World of Illusion weapon for Yuna. You like weapon glamours, you just really want that weapon designed to be the one you wear for your Yuna.
Just unequip it. Just make sure you unequip it. All right, good question. Thank you. Next question, Chris.
Sism asks, so was Lufenia as bad as you thought it would be, or is this garbage time Lufenia and the first real one is still to come? Mino's already answered this in the chat. are in the podcast questions chat, so I'm just going to briefly touch on this. We kind of knew the first month of Lufenia would not be too hard of a step up. It's kind of like get used to Lufenia mechanics, Lufenia orbs. It's not going to be super hard. The real ramp up in difficulty will be next month. So get ready for that. We've already kind of talked about it earlier in this, but I'm just going to address it directly. Also, remember that there's a lot of synergy bias going on. If you
Yes.
brought Warrior of Light to the first one, it was a lot easier than if you did not bring Warrior of Light.
8.
If you brought 8 to his Lost Chapter fight, it was a lot easier than if you didn't. If you brought Kurasame to his Lufenia fight, it was a lot easier than if you did not. So keep those in mind.
Yeah, so, Magnol and I were talking a little briefly before the show about this. Magnol hates challenge quests because they are very, very restrictive and, of course, have complete synergy bias. And to some sense, Lufenia is the same thing. They want you to bring a counter character. So who's on the banner? The best counter character at the moment. They want you to bring an ice character. So who's on the banner? The best ice character at the moment, right? So these Lufenias are tailored to the characters on the banner. The difference between Lufenia and the challenge quest is you can beat the Lufenia without that character. You can use more creative teams. It might be harder. You still need to respect the orb, but it's possible. And so there's a lot more creativity and a lot more possibility in Lufenia. So yeah, check your synergy bias. And you get a friend unit. That's great. 5D PZ is saying, yeah, you get a friend unit. So there's even more options there. I do like that actually a lot. And I'm glad the challenge quests are kind of now a little bit easier and regulated to easier content. But yeah, so, I don't think we're in garbage time Lufenia. We're in the beginning of Lufenia. And so, they will get harder. And I mean, there will be some that are just unreasonable and some that are easier. And that's how it always goes. It just depends on the fight, right? It can't be a perfect, upward graph there. It's always going to be up and down, and it will always depend on who you have. And some Lufenias can be cheesed easier than others. And if you pull, hey, guess what? You're probably going to have an easier time on it than if you don't pull. That's how a gacha game works, whether you like it or not. Thankfully, Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, and I think I can say this with great assurance as I have played what I assume now is thousands of gacha games, is definitely the most generous gacha game in the mobile community right now. So you can be free to play and complete all of the content. And like our friend Pikachu, never ever spend any ingots and still beat the content. Like our friend J.A, have just a ridiculous number of resources and be completely free to play and still do all the content and have a lot of good fun. So yeah, Arrow, did you have anything to say about Lufenia garbage time?
I don't think it's garbage time. Look, I hated the Cosmos to Chaos transition so much. They killed so many characters just going in because they decided to ramp up the defenses to crazy numbers. They ramped up like the amount of HP you had to deal to crazy numbers. They put like the turn counts like to the same level, but then like, yeah, you had to purple like Cloud in month 1, like, or you had to purple like it just felt like you had to purple those certain few 5 characters, and if you didn't, well, bye, you don't get to play. So that really, really annoyed me. And in fact, I almost quit the game over it. It annoyed me that bad. That was how bad the transition really was, because I didn't want to invest in Cloud. I didn't want to invest in Garland. I didn't want to invest in Ultimecia. And I invested in other characters instead, and that was a terrible idea. The game punished you too hard for those choices, and I didn't like that. This has been much better because, maybe it's just the roster's a little more diverse. I don't know, but I have been able to still play the way I want to play while still respecting the orb mechanics this month, and I've enjoyed myself immensely. The Cosmos to Chaos transition was nothing like that, and I think people have kind of forgotten that, but it was awful. If you didn't want to play the absolute meta of that month, it was just not fun. It was probably one of the most stressful times in the game ever, and that's saying something. When we had Lena EX, I actually felt that it was worse than that.
Yeah, and I mean definitely the early EX era, not EX weapon, but EX difficulty level 100. The Cosmos transition wasn't too bad, but then Cosmos Chaos was terrible. We've had a nice lead up to Lufenia, and then we're going to have a nice lead up to Transcendence, which is the next kind of era of Dimensions End. So, it is a little bit of a softer blow, but also a reasonable one. So depending on who you pulled, you don't have to have pulled every character like I have in the LDBT era. And you're still going to be okay, but you've been able to build up a few characters, most likely, depending on where you are. So. All right, we have time for a few more questions, Kreese.
We'll do a couple more.
Yeah.
SS Vegito asks, when do you think BT will become more important than it is for the current early Lufenia era? As of now, they are still kind of a bonus, but not really required. Will it be the mid Lufenia era that they expect us to have more BT units? I don't really know how to answer this. I think it's always going to be a state until we get to like Transcendence, where it's going to be one of those things that bursts help, but they don't feel they're not super necessary, and we're going to see that in Macnal's Call to Arms. We're never going to see a shutout where you cannot beat a Lufenia unless you have a specific burst weapon, I suspect. Arrow?
Doesn't boss rush, like if you have a burst weapon, I don't know the whole thing with that. Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of it's any synergy character for that, and then you get synergy. Yeah, I don't think bursts are going to make a big impact until Transcendence, but even then that's permanent content.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a point where probably you won't have to have the burst like to beat it, but it will certainly help because it will give all those synergy stats to your characters. Other than that, I don't know. So far as somebody who's only got 2 bursts, I've never felt like I've had to use my burst yet. Like I just sometimes do it for fun in my videos, but I never felt like the difference in a fight right now would be if I had a burst or if I didn't. That's just kind of how I feel. I think LD really is the new power creep, and I'd rather have 2 or 3 new LD than one burst. Honestly, having more character options is usually better, especially with Lufenia orbs being, potentially restrictive in some cases and not.
Yeah, Mino is saying in chat, I was going to say, if you're not familiar, the next tier of Dimensions End entropy in Japan is called Transcendence, and burst characters have synergy boosts if you have their burst weapons. So that's one thing that bursts become a lot more useful. But Mino's saying that there's just recently been announced in Japan 6-person quests where you score more points depending on how well geared your characters are, and you get special points for running the synergy burst weapons that you get burst tokens. So for the Lufenia, you need 6 characters and 6 CAs calls all geared up. So that's a long ways off, but that's going to make it a kind of a necessity if you want to get all the stuff. So yeah, it kind of a pain in the butt. So yeah. But right now, I mean, when people ask, well, is their burst worth it? Well, is it worth it to pity a burst? No, unless you have 2 million gems and you want to get all the bursts, like our friend 5D here. You can do that if that's how you want to play. That's great. But bursts are never necessary, but they're sure nice, right? So, the best suggestion, I was watching a few other streamers as I'm stuck in my basement here for a while. So I've been watching a few other streamers, and a lot of people are willing to pity bursts. Unless you have a crazy ton of resources, I would not suggest pitying a burst, or unless someone's your absolute favorite. If you have an absolute favorite, look at that cycle and see if you can pull on multiple banners to try to get the burst. But yeah, I mean, the bursts are very, very, very nice. Sometimes it gives you an extra LD, which can be really clinch. Sometimes it just gives you that extra cycle, that extra summons phase, which is really nice. But not necessarily worth pitying for a burst weapon, especially as you're probably not going to use these characters for very long. I mean, every character kind of has their cycle, so there's not like one burst weapon that's going to last you for 6 months. Except for Paladin Cecil, he doesn't last for 6 months, but he's really useful. All right. Yeah. Let's see if there's another one.
This is going to be the last one I think we answer
Perfect.
tonight. It's from Hope Starter. And the reason I'm going to answer it is just to get ahead of it because it's asking about Ultimate Bahamut, which comes out
Yes.
on Monday night, Tuesday morning. So since Ultimate Bahamut is around this Monday night, Tuesday morning in terms of summon board farming, which units will you prioritize first for the mastery of their Bahamut boards? And which units do you plan to obtain treasures in the meantime? Also, how does the new auto function of the autocomplete summon boards affect you in terms of trying to conserve treasures and opening them only when you need to? I'll go first. I am going to do what I've done with every summon board grind for every special boosted event, which is I will master characters that I have fully realized, which is a very it's a growing list. I think uh it's over close to half the roster now I have fully realized, or maybe not half the roster, maybe a third of the roster is fully realized now for me. So it's going to be a good chunk of the roster. And then I get treasures for every other character, or I get enough summon board points to get treasures for the rest of the roster. As for how I do it, I probably just won't do the auto thing, and I'll just wait to get them until I want to collect those treasures for those characters. And when I'm ready, I'll just hit the auto button and collect the points and the treasures and everything. And that's how I'll do it. And I'll get them all in one go for those characters. Arrow?
I always make sure I have one of the super synergy characters, and then I do the treasure farm characters first. So I will make sure that that's how it goes. And then after that, I just start going in order of Final Fantasy, starting from the bottom of my list. So I organize it by, the series now. So I will go and start from the bottom, and I'll start putting people in that need masteries, and then I go from there. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I always collect everything right away. So I like tickets. I like using tickets, and I know I'm going to use tickets next month. I am probably on at least. I have plans on one banner at least for tickets next month. So they're going to be saved for that. And after that, that's pretty much it. But that list is starting to grow, man. For masteries, I am so glad I have Moogle Pass to speed that up. Also, please buy ×3 books, guys. If you can afford them, they really, if you value your time, please do it, because I do. And man, it makes it so much more tolerable. And I'm going to be reading a bunch of stuff while I'm also doing my grinds. I don't really pay too much attention.
Don't buy too many 3x books, because the next, this is our last ultimate board. Our next level of boards, you don't need to use the XP books. So you'll just be using XP books for going back and new characters. So you don't necessarily, don't buy too many. That's my but I love 3x books as well, as you all know. I do buy them, but don't buy 200 and then you'll be sitting on them, is all I'm saying. What's my plan for Ultimate Bahamut? Kuja LD. I'm going to pity Kuja LD. Here in a couple days, you can look at my Kuja Should You Pull. I'm going to pity Kuja LD just to burn through. I'm going to reorder my skills so that that LD button is on the first page, and I'm going to kill all of the summons. And if I'm still in my basement isolation quarantine, I'm going to master everybody, because why the hell not? In terms of 3x XP books, I use 3x item books well. But yeah, don't buy the experience points books in great mass, because you're not going to use them for new boards. Because the next version of the boards you don't need, so you only need a few ×3 books, or you can use ×2 books for those new characters, as it doesn't take very long, especially with Kuja now. It's gonna burn through those summons real fast. But yeah, in terms of claiming the treasures, I just don't claim treasures at all for characters. I don't do anything with boards for characters who I don't use. And if I use a character, then I go through and I master their boards. So that's easy enough. All right. Well, I think good question, Hope. Thank you. As always, thank you all. And you can go podcast questions on our Discord. This week, Ultimate Bahamut with Kuja's rework, his LDBT. Again, I'll be doing a Should You Pull for that, and I'll do a pull video as well. Dimensions and Entropy Tier 17 at the same time. Then later in the week, maybe as we're live next week. Is that correct? Is that next?
I don't think so.
Okay. So the day before.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
we don't have
kind of
the
back to back.
Palladium next week.
Yeah, so the day before we stream, Gao's Lost Chapter. So Gao gets his, so we'll have a busy show next week. And then Gladio on the 24th, just in time for Thanksgiving. And then the Black Friday sales will be on the 26th, and we don't have anything announced after that. The next mobile stream should be on the 30th of November. We haven't decided. We'll probably talk about what we probably will take the week off of Thanksgiving. But hopefully we'll be able to play this game at some point in the near future. Servers are under maintenance. Yes, they have been under maintenance for several hours now. Hopefully they will continue to be fixed, and we will get that, and we will get some free swag in terms of that. Yes, and if you have missed your dailies, don't worry about it. Thank you for everybody who has joined us tonight live on Twitch every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now we're off Daylight Savings Time. Thank you to all of our crew. Arrow, Crease, Arrow, you can check out her YouTube lately. Crease has a Twitch channel. He does some stuff on Twitch from time to time. Mino's in there in chat, but thanks to Inkwelder, J.A, Jin Lee, Macnal, Quetz, Strafe, Dreamy, Jin Lee, HaateXIII, Ryan is the Bomb 203, Black Cloud, Shara, Ricky Shu, the entire Tonberry Troupe, including Teleute and Bay Novus, who I didn't mention, and of course our founder Pierre, talked to him a little bit this week. So so many wonderful people, all of you who are part of our community. We just enjoy spending this time every week with you. So for episode 127, recorded on November 12th, 2013, this has been Mark, Arrow, and Crease. Until next time, good luck on all your polls. Good luck on that board grinding. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.